I've not seen such bravery.
When I think of the term guilty pleasure, I immediately think of movies. My guilty pleasure movies of choice are the Saw movies, which I would assume is a pretty popular opinion. And until now, I've never really thought about what my guilty pleasure games are. But I've done some soul searching, and I'm ready to tell you my top 5 guilty pleasure games. So let's get started! Yay! Donkey Kong hit arcades in 1981 and was a huge success to say the least. It was the first game to feature our favorite plumber. Well, second favorite to some people. It was also the first time people saw Donkey Kong, but this was back when he was still a villain. He would later become a protagonist, and Bowser would eventually fill the role of villain. But then Mario still invites him to go go-karting, to play tennis, and to play board games. The Mario universe starts getting weird if you think about it for more than like a second. Anyway, Mario has to go through a series of obstacles to try and save Pauline, but Donkey Kong ain't having none of that shit and continues to steal her away right before her rescue. This is a game that has cemented itself in gaming history as one of Nintendo's most important breakthroughs. So why is such a highly regarded game making it onto a list of my guilty pleasure games? Well, if you had asked me before 2007 about Donkey Kong, I would have told you that I don't give one shit about no stanky ass Donkey Kong arcade game. Then I would have kicked you in the knee, and you'd know never to talk to me in that tone of voice again. You see, it wasn't until I watched the documentary The King of Kong before I really cared about the game. The battle between Steve Wiebe and Billy Mitchell really makes the game worth playing to me. By playing it, I feel like I'm on the rise to become just like the Donkey Kong champions, and the only difference between them and me is that I can't get past the 3rd level. I'm not good at the game at all, and I'm not even convinced that I have fun while I play it. Still, every time I'm given the chance to take a run at Donkey Kong, I gladly do it because it reminds me of the film. And it is for that reason that I am guilty. I was fairly certain that a sports game was going to end up on the list, but it took me a while to decide between VIRTUA Tennis 2 and MLB The Show. I settled on VIRTUA Tennis 2 because it's not only the one that I played more often, but also because I have no attachment to tennis whatsoever. I don't play tennis, I don't watch tennis, and the only tennis player names that I could say off the top of my head are Serena and not Serena Williams. As for the game itself, well, it's tennis. And we're not talking invite everyone from the Mushroom Kingdom out for a game of tennis. We're talking people playing tennis. And even though it's 2 boring people hitting a boring yellow ball with boring rackets over a boring net, I play this game almost every time I decide to have a Dreamcast session. As is the case with any sports game, someone out there is bound to be thinking, if you like playing VIRTUA Tennis so much, why not just go out and play real tennis? Well, I'd answer that question with another question. Have you ever played tennis? Tennis is hard. Hell, the only way I can ever win a match in VIRTUA Tennis is to play doubles and let my teammate do all the work. And see that thing they're doing with their legs right there? That's called walking, and that's way too much effort for me. I'll just stick with VIRTUA Tennis 2, thank you very much.
15 all.
Let me just say now that I am a phenomenal dancer. I am known throughout the world as a dance machine, and it's all thanks to this dance machine. Dance Dance Revolution took the arcades by storm, which, in retrospect, was really unfortunate. Years ago, I was the kid who hogged the machine until I was out of tokens, and yes, I even own a couple different versions of it for the PlayStation 2. For a while, I actually used DDR as my main source of exercise. Now that might sound pathetic, but when you compare it to the fact that my main source of exercise now is nothing, then yeah, it's still kind of pathetic. For the most part, DDR's music wasn't even good, which is weird because it's kind of a big part of the experience. Other than music, there's just arrows. Lots and lots of arrows. No matter how idiotic I look while playing this grandfather of rhythm games, I still think they're fun to play. Now let's move on before this music drives me insane. Oh boy, is this going to make some Sonic fans upset. Number 2 on my list of guilty pleasure games is Sonic Adventure. A few months ago, I wouldn't have considered this game a guilty pleasure. I mean, we're talking about Sonic Adventure here. This was the best-selling game on the Dreamcast. Everybody knew about it when it came out, and everybody wanted to play it. And you know what? It was good. But that right there is the problem. Upon revisiting the game, it's quite obvious that Sonic Adventure has not aged well at all. Sonic Adventure 2 fared a little better at growing old, but the original aged faster than a heroin addict. Oh, that is a horrible thing to say. The camera is famously awful in this game, and there are glitches galore. The times at which the game works as it's supposed to work are really great, but those moments are few and far between. Then there's the outrageously bad voice acting and the downright freaky facial animations.
Watch out! You're gonna crash! Ah!
And of course, we can't forget about Big the Cat. Sega re-released the game on a number of different platforms, calling it Sonic Adventure DX, Director's Cut. I'm not even sure if they addressed any of the problems that the original had, which just seems silly to me. Aside from some extra content and making the characters inexplicably shiny, I haven't really noticed any major differences. Sonic Adventure just isn't a good game, but still I love it so much. I mean, come on, it's Sonic! And he's adventuring! The Sonic Adventure games are always going to have a special place in my heart. My nostalgia vision is just too powerful for me to write them off. I'll admit that it's not a great game, and that if it wasn't a Sonic game, I probably wouldn't like it. But it is, and I do. You hear that noise? You know what that is? That's the sound of any gaming credibility I ever had jumping out of a window and falling into Mary Poppins' magic bag where it'll... I don't remember where I was going with this. Number 1 on my list of guilty pleasure games is RuneScape. This game seems to get a lot of hate, but I like to imagine that everyone who talks about how shitty it is still logs in every now and again to play. I've got a long history with this game, which is probably why I still like it. Back when I started to play, it didn't look like this, or like this. There we go. This is the RuneScape that won my heart over. As far as I can remember, it was my first real MMORPG experience, and goddamn was it a good one. But good times come to an end, and eventually I grew out of my RuneScape phase. The game tried to grow up with me, but it just wasn't enough. Not to mention that Jagex made some horrible changes along the way. A few times a year though, I revisit RuneScape and see how everything looks. Just last year, I even bought a month's worth of membership so I could explore the pay-to-play areas. And yes, I do feel a little ashamed of myself. Probably the most embarrassing part of still enjoying this game from time to time is that it's a total grind fest. Even worse, the skills I choose to focus on are probably some of the grindiest. I'm not hesitant to bitch about grinding in games, but for some reason RuneScape was one of the exceptions. I still can't get over how nostalgic seeing some of the classic footage makes me feel. Nowadays I just don't get the same excitement I got from pointing and clicking my way around Gielinor as I used to. I guess I'm just too old or too handsome to enjoy the game as much as I used to. I don't know. If I had a chance to pick a game to completely re-experience, RuneScape would be on my list of games to consider. Of course, I'd also have to be back in elementary school, because I would desperately need a refill on that childhood wonder if I were to replay it now. Well, there you have my top 5 guilty pleasure games. And while we all know that my opinion is the most important one, I also recognize that it's not the only one out there. So I asked my friend Yungtown to pick a guilty pleasure game that he would have added to my list.
So first off, I want to thank Moosey for allowing me to share this moment with him.
Huh? Oh, yeah, sure, whatever.
Yeah, we're best friends.
My biggest gaming guilty pleasure would definitely be Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets for the Xbox. While it received relatively positive reviews, it isn't one of those games I would ever broadcast having played, or would admit to having completed more than 10 times. This game takes completely after the book, and more accurately so than the movie. So if you've read the book and seen the film, you'll be pleasantly surprised to see what the developers put in the game directly from the book. Like getting to denome the garden, fighting Ganondorf, and who could forget flying through rings? Any of this looking familiar? However, the biggest redeeming factor for this game isn't the missions, isn't the voice acting, it's Hogwarts. If you know your Potter lore, you'll appreciate that everything is in its rightful place, like the Transfigurations corridor being on the first floor, and the entrance through the Fat Lady being on the 7th. It's all about feeling immersed in the Harry Potter world, and using magical spells on random objects to collect beans. Definitely the kind of world I want to live in. Also, if Emma Watson is in that world, that would be a plus.
Thanks, Yungtown. That was great. I'd also love to hear what your guilty pleasure game is, so leave me a comment below and let me know. Go, go, go! Don't you know? And until next time, I'm brutalmoose, and I'm really bad at writing conclusions.
Could possibly be us together in the future, but hey, thanks for this ocarina. See ya! I will remember all the times that we shared, yeah.